How you doing, guys? Professor EDC with another BLADE-OSOPHY Sunday, and well, today we're going to talk about wounds and how to treat them. But let's not just talk about physical wounds. Let's talk about pain. I think it's something that nowadays it's so relevant due to all of this COVID situation and how it's affected and impacted us as a family, as an individual, in the working life or labor life and personal life. I think it's rather important that we have some clues as to how to proceed when facing pain. That pain may well be a cut. Yeah, we know this. With how many cuts have we had in our lives, and even more so the knife community. When we talk about knives, well, this is a one that it's kind of hard. There we go. The detent is that stop is hard, and it's gotta be careful with that. And precisely, we have a tool that's why it's important to get to know our tools to prevent pain, to prevent accidents, because there are things that can be prevented, right? But at the same time, I used to have beehives, and we used to have around, I don't remember if it was 22, 24 beehives, and we taught children how to go in, elementary school children, how to work with bees, which is a beautiful and a wonderful thing. But every time we went into this area where the beehives were, we would tell the children, remember, we are going into their territory, so it is very likely that we're going to be stung by one or many of them. But what should we do if that happens? And of course, before we ever went in, we taught children about the behavior of bees, and in situations like that, what to do and what not to do. And so the same, when we are using a tool, a cutting tool, when we're using knives, it is very likely that we might get hurt, that we might cut ourselves, right? And just by having that into consideration, that's going to help us, that's going to ease our mind, and it's going to help us to know how to deal with pain, know how to deal with a wound, a cut, and that's a great advantage, isn't it? And so in life, when we are, for example, heartbroken, if we enter a relationship, if we're in a relationship, well, we gotta know we might get, it's not a might, we certainly are gonna get heartbroken. We certainly are gonna have problems and difficulties with our significant other. But the thing is, we gotta go on, we gotta continue, we gotta find ways to cure, to heal that, and to continue with the relationship if it's healthy enough to continue, right? But you know, we gotta realize that we gotta know that it's going to happen. And we gotta know beforehand what to do when it happens. It's like preparing for earthquakes, right? So I lived for 5 years in California, and there earthquakes are a very common thing, and we used to have drills at school all the time, and in the apartments we had alarms, and well, the city was prepared in that sense, in many ways. But we took drills, right? We prepared ourselves for earthquakes, knowing that in that area, they are very common. So it is exactly the same. If we go into the area of beehives, we are likely to get stung. So we go with equipment, we protect ourselves. We don't use any strong lotions or perfume or anything that smells too strong, because it might affect the bees, you know. So we take we try to prevent as much as possible the situation or situations that might arise, and we also have to realize if we can cope with the situation by ourselves, or we might need help. But that's a more advanced step. The thing is, whenever we get hurt, whenever we are wounded or cut, whether it is a cut by a blade or a cut by nasty words, whether it is the death of a dear one or an unlikely, well, not unlikely, but a sour surprise that life throws at us, which is very common and even more so nowadays, we have to keep calm. And I know it's hard. But then again, it's a matter of practice. Of course, we're not going to find situations where we are going to get hurt or feel psychological, emotional, physical pain, no. But, and I just forgot the word. It's like entering those like cockpits of not real airplanes, but simulators. That's the word. So we go into the simulator of mind, and we practice as samurais did, and they practice getting ready for death, and so we practice getting ready for life, and pay a lot of attention to the situations, and in this simulator there are no limits, so it's a limitless situation that we can create and see how we feel in those situations, and practice over and over, like getting ready for an exam, for a test. And in Buddhism there is this phrase that a few teachers have mentioned, and it is it's like sitting on fire, and so you gotta keep calm. And of course we're not really sitting on fire, because that would be absurd, right? But what they're talking about is the pain caused by the mind. Of course, when we cut ourselves physically, there might be some tingling or some pain if we cut a nerve or something nasty like that, right? But at the same time, the best thing that we can do is try to keep calm, try to breathe and see what is happening. I worked for many years in up in the Sierra, in the forest, in the wild, with children, and we had to be very careful with rattlesnakes and coral snakes. I don't know if that's the name in English, but anyways, very poisonous snakes, and also scorpions, because here where I live, scorpions are a thing, and they're very, very poisonous. They're not the kind of scorpions that you can keep as pets, you know. But anyways, and another thing that we told our children, our students, was to, if ever they felt bitten by something, they really needed to pay attention, keep calm, and look and observe and see what bit them, because there were a lot of thorns in these areas. So it in many cases, we never had an accident like that of a rattlesnake or anything, thank God. But there were a lot of thorns, and that did happen, that they were stung by pretty bad thorns. And there are thorns here that after you get stung, it itches. So, but they needed to know what hit them, what bit them, what stung them. And so in life, it is important to realize and to know what's hurting us, who's hurting us, how are they hurting us, or how are we hurting ourselves? Because that too is another possibility of hurting ourselves. We do this all the time. And that's why it's important to watch our mind, to pay attention to the situation, to sit on the fire of the mind. It's also like when going to the ocean, when going swimming, or to a pool or river or a lake. We gotta know how to swim, right? But at the same time, we have to think about the situations that what might put us in danger of drowning, a cramp, overeating, underwater currents, not having the strength to swim back, things like that. And so, as you see, when we talk about the beehives and the swimming and getting our hearts broken, or depression, you know, these are things, and I mean depression in a not in a chemical, biological way, but in a rather psychological and mental way. Because when we talk about chemically, when there are chemicals that detonate depression, that has to be treated in a different way, in an adequate way. But other than that, we can help ourselves in many ways. We can learn how to sit on fire, on the fire of our own minds. And remember that we have survived many things. And use that memory, recall on our strength, the strength that has helped us survive different situations, because it's there. And by remembering those moments that we have, those other moments that we have survived, that we were able to stand up again that brings back self-assurance and strength to the present moment. This is not something magical. This is something psychological, and that it happens. And I speak of it having lived through many things, as most of people. I have received somewhat of training, psychological training, pedagogical training, and that's why it is clear on that sense to me. I have received a more in-depth training in matters of meditation and philosophy, so that's why I mention it as I do. So it is something. There are things that we can prevent, and there are things that cannot be prevented, unfortunately. But in any case, there are things that we can do to help ourselves. And the mind has abilities and tools that we have yet to develop, and those are very important. But if we don't start with this mind simulator, and for example meditating, contemplating, Jesus would call it contemplation, right? The Catholics, the Christians would call that contemplation, and Buddhists call it meditation, and the Sufis might call it this wonderful dance they did, and so on and so on. There are wonderful ways of going into our own minds, from shamanic practices to Hindu practices, yoga, for example, right? That is meditation in action, the same as Tai Chi or Qigong and activities of the sort. And they are related. They are related to our mind and the flow of our mind and energy. And I'm not saying energy in a magical way. It just, when we are down, how is our energy? Down. We don't even want to get up, right? That's what I mean. Something practical. That's what I'm talking about in that sense of energy. Really practical things. And when we recall situations when we have overcome different tough things, a tough meeting, a hard exam, the death of a friend, and stuff like that, overcoming broken up relationship, the death of our dog, those are tough things. Those are tough things. But when we recall them, we are recalling at the same time, we're calling back that energy. We're calling back that strength that helped us through. And so it is important, when using these wonderful tools, to know this. And so it is important, as we live in this so wonderful and complicated life, to know that there are things that we can do to help ourselves. And to know that if we can't help ourselves, there are people who will help us. Whether they are family members, whether they are friends or specialists. And there's nothing wrong with knowing when to ask for help. And it is of wise men and women to ask for help when needed. Anyways, how do you treat pain? Do you block it? Do you not want to see it because it's hurting too much? Because there's a lot of blood spilling? Hey, we gotta take a good look at that wound and see how bad it is. Do we have to go to the hospital and get stitches? Or can we take a deep breath, many deep breaths, and try to calm ourselves down and put our arm up so the blood doesn't flow down? This is all related. There is always a correlation between the psychological and the physical, and between blades and life. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to read your comments, and know that there's always someone out there that might be able to help. But know that you have the tools within you to help yourself, because no matter what situation it is, it too will pass. Hope you have a wonderful week, guys, and I'll see you around. Professor EDC out.